the Jesus way.
Oh, the Jesus way
Is the way of peace.
is the way of peace.
Oh, the Jesus way.
Oh, the Jesus way
Is the way of peace.
is the way of peace.
Oh, the Jesus way is the way of peace. When he is king, all wars will cease. May his peace begin with me.
The annual conference of the Church of the Brethren has taken place for over 230 years. It goes back to the 1700s. It is part business meeting and part family reunion, where folks come together for worship, fellowship, and discerning the business that comes before the wider church. According to Chris Douglas, the director of the annual conference, it's going to be a very different event this year. Hello, I'm Brent Carlson. Welcome to Brethren Voices. The 2019 annual conference of the Church of the Brethren will be held in Greensboro, North Carolina this year, beginning Wednesday, July 3rd and ending on Sunday, July 7th. The theme has been chosen and is Proclaim Christ and Reclaim Passion. Instead of a usual business schedule, the delegate body will spend much of its time in compelling vision conversations. Non-delegates may reserve seats at tables during the business sessions in order to fully participate in those conversations. Each year, a moderator is elected to lead the annual conference. This person serves as the spiritual leader of the denomination and selects an annual theme and daily themes for the conference. This person also resides over the business portion of the meeting. We had a chance to visit with Donita Keister of Mifflinburg, Pennsylvania, the annual conference moderator for the 2019 annual conference. Donita Keister, welcome to Brethren Voices.
Thank you. Thank
and
you
welcome
for
to
having
the
me.
Pacific Northwest.
It's great to be here.
Have you been out here before?
Only when I was about 16 years old, my parents took my two sisters and I on a long vacation. My dad had been in BVS, and he had lots of BVS buddies who were scattered across the United States. And so he wanted to take us on this vacation to visit all of his BVS buddies and to sing in their churches because our family sang together. And so we had a BVS buddy, Warren Eikenberry and his family, who lived in Wenatchee. And we sang in one of the churches in Wenatchee and spent a couple days with him. So that's the last time that I was here. And I remember eating the big Bing cherries off of his cherry trees.
They're delicious.
Yeah.
So you were in the Keister family choir.
No,
And you toured the country.
Well, actually, I was a Shank, and my father was John Shank.
Okay.
And so it was the John Shank family. Yes.
Interesting, because I have gone to churches where a family choir came through. I missed the Shank family when they
Yes,
came. So.
yeah.
Wonderful. So you really got to see some country when you did that.
Yes, we did. And we, on our way home, we stopped at annual conference that year. It was 1976. The annual conference was in Wichita. And so we spent a couple of days in Wichita, and I think we sang at the BRF dinner that year in Wichita, perhaps, and then continued heading home.
Sounds like your history in the Brethren Church goes way, way back. Can you tell us a little bit about your beginnings and your family?
Yes, I would say I'm a typical cradle Brethren. Although the older I get, the more I realize that there is no such thing as typical when it comes to being Brethren or anything else these days. But I was born into a family. My mother and dad both grew up in the Church of the Brethren. My dad grew up in a very large congregation, Chickies Church of the Brethren near Lancaster in Lancaster County. And my mother grew up in a small congregation in Perry County, Pennsylvania. And it was a small, struggling congregation. They happened to meet at Elizabethtown College at an athletic event, and then eventually my mother went to Chickies and met my father again. So we enjoyed, small Church of the Brethren and large Church of the Brethren in our family. When my parents married, we started out in the Chickies Church of the Brethren. My formative years were there until I was about 8 years old. And at that time, My dad really was convicted that he wanted our family to help a church, to be in a church, just simply to be present in a church that needed our ministry. Chickies is just a very strong church that has many families there to serve and help in the ministry there. And so my dad just wanted to be in a church where we could be more of a help. And so he moved our family to Perry County, to my mother's church. Now, my mother wasn't real happy about this at first because she loved being in a large congregation, having grown up in a small congregation. But she was a partner with my dad, and so together we all went to Perry County, and it wasn't but a few years after that that they called my dad to the ministry there. So he pastored this small congregation, and our family was there, and the congregation actually grew under his pastoral ministry and became strong and was able to kind of move away from some of the conflict that had hampered it as a small congregation.
Your father's move really impresses me, because that's dedication to service and wanting to
he just
help
wanted
others.
to serve. And he didn't move because he was already a pastor. He wasn't yet. But he was a printer. He was a pressman that he learned in BVS to run 4-color presses. And so he changed jobs, and we moved to Perry County. And this was very impressive on me in my early formation, spiritual formation, because I saw what my dad did and his dedication to being a servant, someplace where we were needed most. And so it really impressed me that he did that. I then grew up at Mount Olivet and met my husband, Brian, who was from the Buffalo Valley congregation through district youth events.
Brethren?
Yes, Buffalo Valley Church of the Brethren, where I serve today. And so, of course, we got married, and we have 5 children, 5 daughters. And after our 5 daughters were born and pretty much raised, they were in their high school years, I just felt a call to be more involved in ministry in the church in a more formal way. Up until that time, I had run my own baking business. I made wedding cakes. I was a wedding cake artist for many years, and many years had most wedding cake weeks. I'd have maybe 3 or 4 wedding cakes each week. And that was my main business.
So you were a baker and made wedding cakes. What did your husband do?
We ran a family farm. We have a farming operation that he actually took from walked into from his dad. He kind of inherited it from his dad and walked into that as soon as we were married. So we farm about 650, 700 acres.
That's a big farm.
Yeah, in central Pennsylvania, that's pretty big. And that has been the primary way that our family has
What do you have?
earned a living.
Cows? You have
We
fish?
have-
You have grain? What do you grow? Or
We have a lot of grain, corn and beans, and we also finish beef cattle for the market. So we have about 500 head of beef cattle that we finish each year for market. So that has been our livelihood as a family, and in addition to my professional baking career that I had for many years, which wasn't quite as profitable as the farm, I might add. But nevertheless, it really was a big part of our family's life. As I was baking wedding cakes, I was spending a lot of time thinking about the church, thinking about Buffalo Valley, and thinking about how can the church be more effective? How can the church just do more for the kingdom? And as I thought of Buffalo Valley, I saw some deep needs in the area of family ministry with family and families and children. And so I gave a letter to our leadership team at Buffalo Valley and just said, I just feel a call to be more involved, more formally with ministry. And how would you like to call me into that? and they decided to call me to be licensed and eventually ordained into the ministry.
And this is after your kids were primarily finished with high school?
Yeah, this was 2005, so 3 of our daughters were really pretty much graduated, and then we still had 2 that were still in high school. So I began the TRIM program to get credentialed.
The TRIM is?
TRIM is Training in Ministry. It's a credentialing program through the Church of the Brethren.
Is it through Bethany or is it some other?
Yes, through the Brethren Academy, through Bethany for the most part, but it's the Brethren Academy that...
Is it kind of online? You don't have to actually go to Bethany to take the class?
You don't, but I did go to Bethany for some things, but really enjoyed the TRIM program. I think it's a wonderful, I'm so grateful that the Church of the Brethren offers that, especially for second career folks.
Yeah.
So yeah, and very much. While I was in TRIM, I really began to learn more about the broader denomination, and I learned to know people from all over the nation. And so it was suddenly putting a face to the Brethren, the Church of the Brethren, that I never really had before, even though I was in the Church of the Brethren all my life. Entering that program where I just got to spend time online with so many folks, I realized that we are very diverse, but we are very one-minded in some things, and we all have this heart to be brethren. Whatever that means for each individual. There are some very common things that we can share, and then there's some things that we are different, but that there are faces now to all of the different viewpoints that exist in the church.
I've been very impressed with this heart of service and heart of loving and serving the Lord. It's very core brethren value.
Yeah.
How long is the TRIM program, and then what happened when you graduated? And did you just kind of flow into the ministry you're doing now?
Well, as soon as my congregation licensed me, they also hired me. And I was part-time as I got my credentialing done.
So you're kind of working and training and going to school, all of that. And
I'm baking wedding cakes, and I'm doing TRIM, and I'm working part-time, half-time. I started out at Buffalo Valley. Primarily responsible for ministry with children and families. And so I was part-time, half-time for a while, and then I went to 3/4 time and decided I'm only going to make 1 wedding cake a week now instead of 2 or 3. And so then in 2011, I completely stopped my baking business.
We'll continue to share our visit with Donita Keister, but we also wanted to share a story from the Potsdam Church of the Brethren of Southern Ohio. While doing interviews at the 2018 annual conference in Cincinnati, we were pleasantly surprised with a typical Brethren story concerning a visit to the Nigerian church in Africa by members of the Potsdam congregation. Judy Miller and Carl Hill, thank you for being with us on Brethren Voices today.
Glad to be able to do this.
I understand you're just back from Nigeria. You both go to the Potsdam church, and which is a relatively moderate-sized church for the Church of the Brethren. And you had some wonderful experiences, and we want to hear about it.
Okay. Well, I'm the pastor at the Potsdam Church of the Brethren in Southern Ohio, and my wife was going to go to Nigeria again this year, and I was invited to go along. And so the church allowed me to go for 2 weeks. And as we went, the men's ministry donated $2,000 that we would take with us.
From your church alone?
Yes,
Just your church?
That's right. And so wherever I went, they said, if you found somebody who is in desperate need, use some of that money and see if you can't help them. So as we traveled across Nigeria, we found pastors who needed sound equipment for their churches. We found another pastor who needed a motorcycle. He was developing preaching points in Niger State, which is far away from the EYN home base, and we got him a motorcycle. We found a lady who was deaf and blind and had 4 children whose husband had been killed by the Boko Haram, and we were able to give her some money for support. We found another pastor and his wife who had terrible knees and couldn't even get around, and we gifted them some money too. Overall, it was a really great experience, and I just wanted to bring this story to the church's attention, and just to kind of brag on Potsdam. What a generous and giving heart. And when my wife and I worked for the Nigeria crisis, and we went all around the denomination, we found this to be true in every church all across the country.
You know, we often think, well, it's the national church or the Church of the Brethren that's going to do the big things. But what you're telling me is that your church decided we're going to do something, and we're just going to do it.
Yes.
And you're our representative. We want you to go and see where the need is and share these resources.
Sure, and we were blessed, and of course the people in the church are blessed too. But Judy has a really special story.
I was going to get to that because you did something individually.
Yes. We had another couple whose daughter was going to Africa on a medical mission, and I asked about making headbands for the girls. And I'd made...
And the girls, what girls?
In Africa.
Okay.
And so I made 50 headbands. And the day I took them, the couple wasn't there. So I showed to Roxanne the headbands. And she says, well, if I take any, there's 250 children at this orphanage that they would be stopping at, and that she would need 150 headbands.
Oh my goodness.
So I said, okay. So I made them. I had a friend help me for a few hours. And then we said, well, the little boys need toys. So we went to the congregation and asked for Matchbox cars to be given for the boys. And so they received enough of the little cars that all the little boys got toys. So everybody received. And then also people donated beach balls, jump ropes, soccer balls, tennis balls. And Roxanne was able to fix up 3 bags of toys like that, and she gave them to other areas. So it was all come from our church.
Tell us about the Potsdam Church. You've got an incredible congregation that really feels like service is important.
Well, when I brought this up for doing the things for Nigeria, actually we were gathering things for 3 different projects recently. Some were local projects, and then the other one was for the First Step Home for here at conference. We were able to gather quite a few items that my husband and I brought down from the church. And I don't know, it seems like when there's a project, they're there to help.
Well, we were involved in raising money for 2 tractors that went to Nigeria about a year ago. We didn't raise the bulk of the money, but we raised $7,000 one night in a dessert auction. Until you've seen one, I'd never seen one before, but they were auctioning off pies and cakes, and some of them went for as high as $400. And so it was easy to raise $7,000 that night.
Yeah.
And that money went to buy 2 tractors for Nigeria that went there last year. Okay. Elizabethtown Church of the Brethren was the main fundraiser for that, but we helped. We also have a Wednesday night meal that we feed all the kids in town, and we have a Wednesday night church service for kids that just in that community that come. We have about 30 kids coming every Wednesday night.
We want to thank members of the Potsdam congregation for sharing their wonderful experience with us. We also asked Donita Keister to share with us about being nominated for the position of the moderator of annual conference.
Yes, somebody actually sent me an email who had been familiar with my presence on the board and asked if I would consider allowing my name to go into nomination. So my husband and I talked about it and prayed about it, and I consulted my leadership team at my church to make sure that they would certainly be impacted by that, so to see if they would be supportive. My church was very supportive. They have certainly made room for me in my time and had pledged to do that from the very beginning. So as I left my name go into the mix, certainly when you do that, you don't say, well, it won't make it, because you have to let your name go in, understanding it very well may be on the ballot.
Donita, that's a very important issue for me, because when I talk to people who have answered a call, they've often said it's like stepping into the unknown. It's very scary, and yet there's part of you that feels like this is what I need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Having been on Mission and Ministry Board, I had built a lot of relationships, and I realized that the moderator-elect and the moderator are not by themselves, that there's an incredible number of dedicated people who are walking with you through that. And that was certainly a big part of my willingness to be in this position. So I really value the team that is the leadership team and the officers and all of the other people that really are right there beside you, people that have been more experienced. So that's part of it. But the other part certainly is, will I have what I need to have in order to do this job well? And that is just a matter of faith, that God will equip me when the time is there to where I need that equipping. There's that old statement, God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And then you really start kind of questioning, oh, what did I do? And can I really see myself sitting up on that stage? Oh my.
So you got the vote. You became the moderator-elect.
Yeah.
And then what happens? What does actually the moderator do? And then what's the process that you go through to kind of get oriented?
Yeah, you have this incredible year where you are able to shadow the moderator and sit in the leadership team meetings where you learn so much about what's going on. And again, you are not alone. You are on a team, and together you are making decisions that need to be made by that team. And you get to witness how the current moderator is working and what they're doing to prepare yourself for your year. And it's really a great process. This year, I think because of some of the things that we are actually gearing up to do the year that I'm moderator, we have really desired to focus on a compelling vision for the church and focus on that process. Personally, my deep desire is that something that I've noticed in the Church of the Brethren is that we have a tendency to operate in more of a peacekeeping mode as we try to keep the peace within the denomination. And I would like to see the church begin operating more in a peacemaking mode. And I think we need to explore what changes that means. Peacemaking to me is more definitive when it comes to dealing directly with conflict-oriented situations. Yeah.
So you're mentioning we tend to get into a peacekeeping mode, and you'd like to be more proactive in the peacemaking mode,
right,
dealing with conflicts.
Right. Peacekeeping has a tendency to be a little more passive in just reacting to things that are happening, where peacemaking is a more active process. I think peacemaking is bringing the whole truth to the table, rather than just giving out the pieces of the truth that we think will keep people satisfied. It's just being very authentic with where we are. It means that we embrace conflict rather than trying to keep people separate.
And
avoid it. So, we just say, okay, these parties are going to be together. Let's how can we embrace this conflict to move us to a better place? I'm thrilled that Bethany has a certificate program now in conflict transformation, which is really what we need to do here. We need to transform this conflict. And another way to say that, for me, as in my understandings of conflict transformation, is that we need to become peacemakers. Christ said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall become the children of God."
The Church of the Brethren stands at a crossroads. Recent decades have been defined by conflict. In response to the ongoing conflict, at the 2017 annual conference, the delegate body affirmed a report from the leadership team and the Council of District Executives titled, "The Authority of Annual Conference and Districts Regarding the Accountability of Ministers, Congregations, and Districts." That report concluded with this assertion: to stay on the journey together, it is also crucial that the church discern the compelling vision that this body of Christ is called to pursue. The annual conference this year will attempt to find the common ground of its members. That may be difficult, as we remember Jesus saying that he came to divide, to make all things new, to love one another, and he also said, "Love your neighbor as yourself." So who is our neighbor? Perhaps members of the Church of the Brethren will have to decide that issue for themselves. This is Brent Carlson for Brethren Voices, wishing you peace.
Oh, the Jesus way
Oh, the Jesus way
is the way of peace.
is the way of peace.
Oh, the Jesus way is the way of peace. When he is king, all wars will cease. May his peace begin with me. All those who tread the path he trod.
The path he trod.
All those who tread
All those who tread
the path he trod.
the path he trod.
All those who tread the path he trod shall be called the friends of God. May his peace begin with